Thank you very much. Welcome to you all. As it seems, Johnson's grass is a big issue because we have a large audience here. So I would like to thank people from Aapresid for being with us one more year, and to REM for the space here. This will be a bar lecture. We have beer in the middle, and we'll talk about Johnson's grass. So the QR code, as was stated, is here. This is just so you know, in case you are interested in asking questions. If you cannot scan it, then I'll give you a number. Navier Pico, I'm the technical advisor for the regional Videla company. I'm a private worker. I'm an essay writer and a translator. And here we have Mr. de la Vega from Tucumán. Not everything can be perfect. We talk about Johnson's grass, or Alepo, as is known in Spanish. It's a province from Syria that has endured the arrival of the Crusaders in the Middle Ages. It withstands bombs, ISIS, and Russia. Well, if the origin is so enduring, this is why Johnson's grass is so enduring as well. And we continue having problems. Let's continue. It's an old acquaintance. And this is old Johnson's grass. This is a photo in 2006 in Bandera. This is when resistances appear. We have a great part of the lot controlled. And we saw it from before. In 2003, we started seeing problems close to Tartagal and Mosconi. We started seeing escapes. And since there was no glyphosate resistance, well, the father of the weed, Mr. Le Baron, said back in 1995 that there would not be any weed that would be glyphosate resistant. But it lasted for 1 year. This was very remarkable in Australia at that time. So you created a problem in the north. Well, we actually did not. Please do not accuse us all of this. The dynamic, that is, the populational dynamics, what matters is to know them. In the north, since the weather is warmer, the populational dynamics of Johnson's grass seeds are common. So we'll have 15 seed cycles, since sorghum reshoots in April up until April. We will have 14 to 15 reproductive cycles. In selection, the problems are more in the north. REM in 2012 issued a publication. It is very current dated, and so you're all encouraged to download it. This is 2003, where we declared resistance was 2005, and we thought that this Johnson grass was not a problem, but you do see it is a problem. It will continue to be quite problematic. This is a graph that is generated based on the surveys to Aapresid members. On one of the axes, we have the different types of weeds, and then we have the area, so the department it is present, from 2013 to 2023, and it grows steadily. You see how in 2013 we were above 100 departments with presence of Johnson's grass glyphosate resistant, and it has changed now. I thought it was annual Echinocloa eleucine. They were more problematic, meaning growth or growth-wise because of the number of seeds. But now that I see this, it is good to know that it continues to be a problem. It does continue to be a serious problem. We will see it in the next few charts. This is the affected surface based on the different weeds in Argentina. The first one is Amaranthus, that is glyphosate resistant. There's over 26 million hectares affected. Then Johnson's grass, that is glyphosate resistant. This is the biotype that is resistant to glyphosate. Since 2017 down to 2023, it was multiplied 2.5 from less than 5 million hectares to 12 million hectares that are affected. And it is interesting to see how Amaranthus is first, and then we have Johnson's grass, Chloridias, and raygrass. They all are grasses. Well, there is explanation of this in the systems. In connection to the amount of Johnson's grass, my friend Luca in Cordoba, they talked about 4 million hectares. They couldn't believe the surface covered by Johnson grass. But since you talk about this growth, 2.5, and we are now in 12 million hectares, well, you get to see what the problem is like. We see it in colors with the maps generated by REM. So the first map, 2019, 2021, and 2023, of presence of Johnson's grass that is glyphosate resistant. These show presence, and in yellow, suspicion.
Este gráfico, bueno, fíjense cómo está toda la zona roja, o sea.
This is in red, there is glyphosate resistance, but see how it goes down to the south.
No es que baja.
It doesn't go down, actually. Perhaps we are helping it. It's not that we are the problem. It's not that we are sending all the weeds from the north to the south, but very often we select it in some regions because of the selection pressure we are doing. And I'm sure that where we had more variability, that is the reproductive cycles of the weeds, probably the selection pressure we do, that is where we're going to see the issues first. So what we saw is just as the previous graph. You see 2013 to 2023, how Johnson grass that is glyphosate resistant almost doubled in the number of districts at a national level. So these maps show abundance, that is percentage of lots of land affected between 2019 and 2023 of glyphosate-resistant Johnson grass. You see how the darker colors go up, particularly in Santa Fe. That's your area. I see it. San Justo, that's your region. Well, that's where I come from. Truly, the problem is quite serious there. But we exported it and we improved the resistance, actually, but we imported it from the north, actually.
I am quite surprised to see how that red intensifies over time. And we see growth. That is, even though it's an old acquaintance, we should have to see how we are managing and what we are doing about it in order for us to come to this point. These charts, well, we were talking about glyphosate resistance. Now this is resistant to graminicides. This increases from 2019 to 2023. And again, it started down in the center of Santa Fe. And Santa Fe is almost all red, and so is Cordoba. And it extends, and the resistance extends over to the north. What this shows is that there might be resistance to anything, even to herbicides that were not discovered, because genetic variability does exist. Mutations are pre-existent. And we select those mutations. And that growth that you show, it is similar to the growth that we saw in sorghum that is resistant to glyphosate. The chart shows us the number of departments where we have a graminicide-resistant Johnson's grass. In 2017, we had very few departments, and up to 2023, we have 100 of them with presence. This is where we encompass it all. It's a similar slope. Sometimes there is no resistance of the dims with fobs or the new grass graminicides that will come out. I am lucky to participate in the backyard when we carry out developments. Last time I was taking a look at the kitchen of a lab, and in a few more years a new graminicide will appear. We will try to take care of it. We will try to protect that molecule. If you see this chart, well, this at a REM workshop in the Videla Regional in May, we were taking a look at this, and we were seeing the problem of weeds in San Justo, and one of the problems was the problem in the subsystem. The chart shows in Videla the most problematic weed is Johnson's grass today. These are the maps, one next to the other. 2023, presence, abundance of glyphosate-resistant Johnson's grass and graminicidal resistance. We are at the eye of the storm, and chloridias as well, that are so important and so well distributed, especially in the center to the north. They are so important. But what is it that we are doing? And let's start thinking how weeds think. Whenever I say this, they say, are you out of your mind? Weeds don't think. They do actually think. They make decisions. Being a seed, they may decide to be born or not to be born. This is according to a census of temperature and thermal amplitude, the relationship between red and far red. With those characteristics, the plant knows whether there is anything that can overlap between the plant and the future photosynthesis. So they are born from a seed. When it will be a sapling, there will be 30, 35 days in the middle or 40 days in the middle, and it will start having the underground body, the rhizome. We have to think it's a stalk or the stem that has stomas. It breathes. It has no very long-term reserves, no fats, no liquids, no proteins, just sugars. It is being ready for a race. It needs to consume simple sugars to breathe them quickly. And it is important to find the populational dynamic of the seed. In the north, it is very well measured. It starts kind of late, the first few days in December. It is strange that it should start by late December, and it will extend in 5 cohorts up until March in Tucumán and further north. It will happen in April, and after 40 days, the rhizome is built, and the perennial plant will be managed differently. And since it's an old acquaintance, we go back to old studies, the ones by Satur and Gersa. Emilio was very young at the time. I was not even a graduate at the time. I don't want to say how old we are. And they would see the populational dynamic of the air portion of the rhizome. So in a dotted line, we will find the dynamic of the air part. And in a uniform line, in a running line, we will find the dynamic of the rhizome. When winter strikes, what will happen is there will be haze, and the airborne part will be killed. So there is no photosynthesis. It continues to breathe those simple sugars, glucose, fructose, saccharose. It breathes, and the rhizome is smaller and smaller. And there comes a point where there is increased soil temperature in the north, in Chaco, Noa, and Nea, This will happen in August. We have to pay a lot of attention in this month. And as we come down to colder soils, up to September and early in October, it will reshoot. And so there is a requirement of a big contribution of sugars so that it shoots up. And at this point, a tertiary rhizome will form with a crown and air stems. These stems continue to live at the expense of the rhizome. Let's not apply or make any other control, because there is a physiological concept, the source-destination ratio. The source is the manufacturing plant, the leaf that will produce carbohydrates that will send it to a destination. This will be the rhizome. But when the plant is between 30 and 40 centimeters, people from UBA, well, they determined some thermal time. They would measure with temperatures, and they made a decision as to where to make it. I would like to give homage to a wheat expert, Disertó. He said it's easier to measure 40 centimeters. Between 30 and 40 centimeters, they will go to the rhizome for the rhizome to grow again. We have a minimum rhizome size. We are applying systemic products that will continue to follow the gradients of carbohydrates, and they will reach the rhizome, and with the minimum size, it will be far easier to control it. This is what the charts show, without neglecting the seed. The seed is the source of dispersion. My dear friend Lanfranconi says, the only one that walks down the line in nature is human beings. If we take a look at a line where Johnson's grass or any other weed is sown, will follow the tills, the footprint of the tills. But the thing is that I didn't have any Johnson's grass, and I have a line now. If the plant has turned perennial, all the seeds that will drop, turning around, they cannot originate saplings because there's the competition of the mother plant. The further away you move from it, the more possibilities of germination. And this happens in the dissemination with the machine. And we see this at the heads. We start finding problems in the different lots. The problems that have to do with weeds will always start at the heads, because this is where the machine reaches, because they come from the bench, so to speak, to the field. In a lot, there's 35 different weeds for winter and summertime. There's kind of 35 of them on average. And when we remove some individuals from this productive scheme because we were quite efficacious with the herbicide, or because we changed the seed or the crop, we moved from till to no-till or broadcasting, because we were able to do or to grow agriculture in extreme weathers, problems begin at the heads. There's studies that show that the greater variability in population, wheat population, is on the edges. There is a guy in the north, Oscar, he always says problems start on the ends. Pests start on the ends, so this is why we do not have to sow there.
De vuelta acá a la publicación y la pregunta es,
How did we go about this before? This is not new. So please, can you please specify? In the good old days, I mean, how old do I have to go back in time? When I was young, there was conventional till. Then we included trifluralin to inhibit meiosis. At the meristems, at the yolks, there was no reshooting. We had an initial passage. We go back to conventional till. No, it doesn't mean that, because at the conventional till, where we can see rhizomes, we will have the presence of Johnson's grass. So one of the goals would be to cut this rhizome. The problem is that we used to have was that we wanted to cut it, but we had to remove soil. We lost that no-till effort that we need to care. So we are getting to see now is, well, these type of tools. These are vertical cuts, so to speak. They help us cut rhizomes in order for us to have a plant with a smaller rhizoma for the pesticide to work better. This is a frame. The frame was purchased. These are vertical discs, 20 centimeters distance each. We can stick them 20 meters deep. This is a spoon that requires humidity. We wanted to try it 25 days ago, and there is no way about it. We need for rain to fall. And these are for these places where we have these lots that are taken by Johnson's grass, where this is old. We have tons of rhizomes there where we apply herbicide and it regrows. And then this is how we select. That is possible. We should have to see. Last week I spent time with Eugenio, a friend who is a fanatic of no-till. He is from Banderas and Kim Lee. And he talked about another tool that is useful many times for those weeds that grow perennial, the multi-purpose and chain weeds. And how do you destroy those weeds? That's a technical issue. A plant may have 400 meters of rhizome, but the thing is, what do we do if we start working in such a way as to reduce the size of the rhizome without a tool? I don't mean to say, well, these will be technical considerations, but if I said no to this, it would be not wise of me to try and offer all solutions. There's a group of professionals. When glyphosate came about, it was great. It worked really well because we had the best systemic products, but then there were weeds that died and others that did not.
That's when we started seeing the resistance. And when we started seeing the resistance, this chart shows the accumulated resistance. This is also a chart generated by REM. I'm sure you've seen it. The colors show resistance to glyphosate, graminicide, ALS, hormonals, and PPO. And first, you see that we find the red warning of glyphosate resistance in Janssen grass, then graminicides, and then multiple resistances. And about that, I would like to say that looking at this chart, last year at the Argentine Association Weed Sciences conference, I watched a very inspirational talk, and they showed how a stressed plant or a non-stressed plant, well, how that makes a difference. They measured the GR50, that's how you measure resistance, and they saw that the plant that was not under stress, out of drought or heat shocks, maintained the GR50 through generations, in 3 generations. Whereas when they were under stress, the GR50 increased. And that was even more when there was stress and we applied a herbicide. Remember, herbicides, particularly post-emergent, do not work when we have a stressed plant. So I said, I'm going back to the charts of the REM because this will help me. And I added 2 slopes to this chart. The first slope maintains asymptotic, that is, as years go by, there's no growth, but suddenly it goes up. That was in 2011, 2012. That's, well, there are many papers about stress, the stress that a plant suffers, and how the response is that the grandchild becomes resistant. And I thought that was very interesting. So I said 2011, 2012, let's go 3 years before. 2009, there was an important drought. And now we had much more serious drought 2 years ago. Probably this year we're going to find the children of those plants, and next year we will find the grandchildren. So what can we expect? Perhaps more cases of resistance, perhaps not immediately next year. So we're going to start detecting these failures because they will come out of that dormant process in the seed. So I thought that was very interesting because I even associated this with human beings and the self-immune diseases that come from stress. So when we ran into these issues, when we started in 2004, 2005, we started seeing these problems in the north. We started applying graminicides. Some applied 3, 5 graminicides, and there I found the answer that you just gave me with the appearance of graminicide resistance cases. So lots of works were done trying to see if with a conventional till, perhaps we could do one less application of graminicide, but we had the conventional till, so we killed everything in the farrow. But what about using another herbicides? So we, in the sugarcane area, we have a lot of Johnson grass, so we started seeing the products on the sugarcane, and we saw some organic arsenate, that is organic arsenic, and we started making applications of MSA in small plants because it's a herbicide that is not systemic, it's a contact herbicide. And we had this response in total applications. Perhaps we saved an application of graminicide to have a lower selection pressure and try to rotate the assets. So we started working with others like iminosolinone, and we applied DLS, applied in August, September, and then we tried to work with smaller rhizomes, and we started with applications of imanacapir plus imacapig, imacetapir. They worked very well with small plants. We killed the rhizomes, and we started seeing all this. We also started seeing nicosulfuron, not only in the corn post-emergence, but also in the farrow of SDS soybeans. But now we are with ACA, and we're going to the LDS, and now we go back to sugarcane, a product that is called Asunam, that is used at very high doses, a very old product from a lab that no longer exists. So that product that is very systemic, we reduce the doses with cliptodin, and we saw high control efficiencies. I could show you pictures of 60 days after the application. There's no regrowths. I don't want to say that a cut disc doesn't work. This is a technical aspect. I don't think I'm a guru to give you some recommendation that is only that. We have a system of around 26 million hectares throughout the country. Today I met somebody from Trenquelauquen. So you start, their agriculture is not the same as in the north. So that's the importance of technicians. That's why I mentioned that cut disc and reduce the size of the rhizome. Try to review old works and try to find the right timing for the products to work, without forgetting the seed, because once the seed grows, 30 or 40 days later, we are going to have a perennial plant from the rhizome. So we start to work with the pre-emergence, the residuals, herbicides that work so well. Otherwise, we will have an old plant, and the plants that come from seeds that will be old plants again because they will become perennial. And it's always easier to work with small plants because the small plants has a very thin cuticle, and it has very few growth points. If I show you this with 4 points and this one with 32 points, it's not the same for control. We should never forget that when the plant is smaller, one growth point in the seed, the pre-emergent herbicide has to be used. Some of them work very well. There are mixtures like sulfometeron that has an excellent control of the seeds of Johnson grass. We run lots of trials of this, considering the pre-emergence, how they work, and we know that pre-emergence work very well. There's another tool, of course. Sometimes they ask me about the service crops, the cover crops. You mentioned, have you done something like that? Yeah, we have some experiences with cover crops, service crops. Again, as Marcelo mentioned, these experiences are for our regions, because I'm sure I will share the experience of service crop, and for somebody that is in a dry area in winter, they will say, I cannot do that because it's impossible. But this is for our area, and everybody has to adapt the management to their area. So what we saw there were these lots of land taken by Johnson grass, those very old weeds with rhizomes, with lots of growth points. So what we're doing here, this is a picture from 2022 in that land, and it shows a visia in late August or mid-August from first-class corn. It was done April 22nd, and the date of the visia is May the 9th. That's my birthday. So that was going to be dried to go to second soybean, but then it was decided to use it for seeds. The application was done, and then it was plowed. This is 100 kilometers north of San Justo. Johnson grass starts in August. I was there last week, and it's fantastic. It's growing. It's emerging. So you're also from the north. So what happened there was that we plowed the visia for seeds, and in December, of course, it emerged. Johnson grass had nothing on it, so it emerged. We had to do the application of cleptodin, and we didn't have any. Here, the medium dose is 1.5 liters onwards. You don't apply less than that. And the dose we had, the product we had, was for 680 cubic centimeters. So we had the machinery, let's apply it. The control was total, 30-40 centimeters. A very soft Johnson grass that had difficulties coming out of the visia, that had been cut by the plow, perhaps fewer rhizomes because and it was very well hydrated. The control was total. I don't mean we have to reduce the dosage. I mean that when we accommodate all the factors, herbicides start to work, of course. Yeah, with the dosage you mentioned, it's very high. Can we make Johnson grass disappear with the cut discs? It's another tool. I saw it in lands with rye, for instance, and in those areas we didn't see so much growth from seeds, because if you have good lighting and good temperature, so sometimes we control something from the seed. The Johnson grass will still grow because it grows from the reserves in the rhizome, but we will reduce the population. All the tools are helpful. As we mentioned before, of the light, you see it where the wheel was, perhaps you lost a line, so you're going to have soybean lines of 1 meter there. You see that there's more growth than when the soybean was at 50 centimeters. So the line is smaller. There are many factors that we can consider. Probably we can speak a whole day about this. But just to give you some tips about weed management. Exactly. This is just an integrated management that you have to adjust to your situation. And what I mentioned about the visia, which is very interesting, is that if we didn't have that cover, that lot of land would have 3 cleptodin by December, 1 ALS plus cleptodin. I mean, we reduce the selection pressure apart from reducing the AEQ and costs and all the benefits of the service crop of visia for the soil and what we know. Okay, and to conclude, the final question in the REM survey in our region was to define Johnson grass management for the next seasons in one word. The larger the word, that means that more people used it. And we see there that the largest word is complicated. Complicated. Challenging, difficult. agriculture is not easy. It's not maths. One day I was saying that an engineer building a bridge, that's difficult. And we said, no, that's mathematics. You enter a formula and it will tell you how you should make the structure for the bridge. We do biologicals. We just heard a talk on chicharrita, and something that 2 years ago we were not even considering, that its changes are constant. Agriculture engineers are managers of natural environments. Some are more hopeful and they say it's not dangerous. But the good thing about managing natural environments, I always say that the management of Johnson grass in this case would be like combining 9 lions with 4 lions without raising your hand. And I try this in many ways, and there's always some points left outside. But as I said, Javier, this game of joining the 9 dots with 4 lines without raising your hand may be related to this old friend, the soil management with Johnson grass, because with 4 lines we joined the 9 dots. So somebody that was not believing this said, but you made a trip here. You left the system twice. Yeah, what I did was to leave the box, because in the square, the only thing you receive are hits and blows, and particularly if you fight against individuals from another gender, as we've seen in the Olympics. So not being inside the box, not just using chemicals, not just the cut disc. You mentioned the service crops, perhaps reducing the lines. So we have lots of options to come out of the box and to be successful in our management. I think that's it. So to trust in the big technical contribution we have in our Argentine farming sector. Actually, yesterday was the Agriculture Engineers Day. Happy day to all of you. Thank you.